Welcome back to the show, The Unbroken. I'm your host, Sam Davis, and today we're going to be giving you a lot of information of what you need to know before you yourself or your loved one enters drug and alcohol treatment. And my guest today is Jason Shane. He's been on here before. The audience loved him. I wanted to bring him back, and he runs a small program down in St. Augustine, Florida, for men only that deal with heavy trauma and addictions. And the experiences that both he and I have through the years of working in this field is that by the time a lot of families get to us, they've burned out $150,000 in cash, and their loved one's been to, 5, 10, 15 treatment centers, and they're just coming to us just completely defeated without any hope whatsoever. So we want to put some things out here that maybe would be helpful to you to help you navigate the path a lot better. So Jason, welcome, man. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. We're going to get into the weeds on some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little deep dive on something that will help some families out. So one thing that I think we should talk about first is 30-day treatment. They're out here everywhere. What do you think that we can do to help these families navigate this better, to make better use of 30 days, or to better understand that 30 days just really isn't enough?
The 30-day treatment model has been around for a good 30 years or so, if not more, 50 years probably. And that was basically built under the premise that the insurance companies would pay for 28 days of treatment. And so that model was never really scientifically backed that it would be effective. It just was simply that's what it was going to get paid for. So they're not going to do more work than they're going to get paid for. So to think that that is a standard by which almost all treatment gets judged by, it's like whenever you do an intervention, I'm sure like the assumption that the person who's going to treatment is how long are they going to be in treatment? Probably 30 days.
Right.
And if you say anything more than that, they're like, what?
Yeah.
We've grown accustomed to as if it's the gold standard. And the truth is, the complexity of addiction, the way that people come to be in a place where they're going to need help like that, it didn't happen overnight. It's not a flash in the pan thing. It's not a one-time, one-off situation where, oh my God, Junior's got to go to treatment. There was a buildup of behaviors, trauma, and a whole ball of crap that they've been through that have gotten them in a position where they can no longer sustain regular life anymore, and they need help. And to think that you're going to unwind that whole ball, get somebody to trust you, first of all. One of the hardest things in treatment in general is to take somebody who's just been through all this hell, and they're going to come into this place and they're going to just all of a sudden just tell you everything they ever needed to say to get free of all this. No, it doesn't happen that way.
I mean, when you look at, the 28-day system, 5 to 7 of those days is medical detox.
Mm-hmm. And then I can still remember, the counselor in my 28-day experience, the counselor, I met with him within the first couple days I got there, and I met with him at the end. And then we did some small group stuff in the middle. But I think probably over the life of that 28 days, I probably saw this therapist counselor guy probably 5 to 6 times. And the depth of the conversations were basically like, hey, welcome. These are your assignments. And hey, what are you going to do after you leave here?
And you sobered up in a 28-day program, mm-hmm. a run of the mill type 30-day program,
I went to a state-funded program that was free because I was homeless and destitute. So I had no money to go anywhere else, and thank God for it. But it had its limitations, mm-hmm. and there was a lot of things that had to happen for that to work. So I look at it kind of like there was a lot of God, for lack of a better term, in that, because what I got from the treatment was just simply a beginning, kind of like a launch pad for that. And then the decisions I made after it were important. I will say that I had one of those like awakening experiences when I was there. And I believe that's what propelled me to stick with it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen.
And that wasn't generated by the program, was it? Like that experience wasn't cultivated by being in that program itself, was it?
There was one
meditative.
There was the counselor there. He did something special called integrative holotropic breath work, which is a modality that it gets used in trauma treatment as well. And
well, that's pretty interesting that he was doing that in that type of program.
It was.
It's not.
It was happenstance. It was something that they haven't done it before or since there.
Yeah. It wasn't the norm.
And that place is no longer open. No, it was not the norm, and he was there for a very short amount of time. And in that process, I had an experience where, like, it opened me up to the possibility that there was something beyond this world. There was something beyond what I had experienced in life. And it was extremely powerful for me. But it opened me up to the possibility. And from that moment, I was kind of like, I'm going to give this 100%. And so when it came time to, where are you going to go after treatment? And they offered sober living. I had never even heard of sober living. I didn't even know what it was. Now it's pretty common out there that people understand there's sober living homes, sober living environments. 20 years ago, when this happened, there were sober livings, but it wasn't near as the culture and the field has grown in such a way that these continuing care pieces like sober living are much more prominent.
Yeah.
In fact, many programs are sober livings pretending to be treatment centers.
Yeah.
Because it's
I've had that before. Here in Richmond, people out in the rural communities had said, well, my son he went to inpatient in Richmond. This was during a time when there was no inpatient in Richmond, Virginia. And I'm like, what was the name of it? And they'd say, and it's like, that's not inpatient treatment, that's sober living. Mm-hmm. And they had no idea the difference. And we're not here to say that 30 days of treatment can't be successful. I'm not here to take a dump on 30-day treatment programs. We just want you to know, like, what can you expect out of a 30-day program? I think the expectations on families for their loved one going to 30 days of treatment is a little too high.
For sure, because there's so much to cover and there's just so little time to do it, because normally in a 30-day place, you're also constrained by the amount of people that are in treatment as well. Most 30-day places are anywhere between 30 and 100 beds.
Yeah.
So you got to think they've got counselors probably have 10 to 15 people on their caseload. And
aren't they just burnout? I mean, that's a heavy caseload, right?
And you get to see very little progress in that amount of time because, for the most part, people are trying to get out, wanting to leave. You're fighting to keep them there. There's really no report that's built. And you're not getting into depth. There's just no way to do it in that amount of time. Someone can come in completely surrendered and willing to do whatever it takes, and they're still not going to get the attention they need because there's a lot of squeaky wheels in that 100 beds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are fighting the system, who are just, trying to sleep with each other or do whatever it takes to not get better, and they are going to take the lion's share of the energy and focus of the staff.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging to think that your loved one is going to get a life-changing, life-altering, awakening experience that they're going to need to get better. It takes that to get better.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just some superficial run-of-the-mill experience that's going to get somebody better.
Yeah, information isn't going to get me better.
No.
I have to have the experience.
No.
And the experience that you're going to have in one of those big places is not going to be that whole,some gut-level experience that you can get in some of your smaller places.
You're just constrained by time.
Yeah.
You don't it costs money, but the main constraint is time and lack of it in a 30-day situation. It's just there's too many people, there's too little time, no matter how talented or focused or passionate the staff is about it, because there are passionate, good therapists and counselors that work at these places. But they do burn out, they do wear out, and they don't get to see the change that's so powerful that keeps you coming back and wanting to go to work.
Yeah,
every
by
day.
the time they see maybe a flicker of light on a guy or a girl
Time to
come
go.
on, they're moved on.
Yeah.
You know,
And
and what's something else that I've seen is that you talking about this. There's a lot of squeaky wheels, and they get the lion's share of the energy. So what ends up happening? I've seen this firsthand. Like a guy will come in completely surrendered, following the rules, not just being compliant, but surrendered, like following the rules. You know, paying attention to the groups. He's not causing a lot of squeak. The ones that are squeaking over there with the nonsense, they get most of the energy. And because this guy isn't ruffling any feathers, he's primed to do some deep work, but he's unable to do that deep work.
Yeah.
Because they're too busy with that, and they're like, oh, he's doing fine. He's going to do good. He's going to do well. But he was just primed to do the work.
Right.
He wasn't able to do the work, and then he goes out and messes up, and he's like, what's wrong with me?
And they're hoping that he does the work in his continuing care.
Mm-hmm.
Because their job in 30 days is just really stabilization. They'll make it sound like that you're going to have some life-altering experience in there, and that's going to be enough time because they have to. That's the way they have to market it.
Yeah.
Because that's what their offer is.
We'll address this. We'll address that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And they just don't have the ability to do it.
They don't even know your address.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't even know your address. Yeah, that's right.
You know,
that's
they don't.
right.
I can't say it can't be done because it does happen. But the chances is that most people that are watching this podcast have probably experienced that their loved one has been through multiple 30-day treatments. And if they haven't, if you've never been to treatment before, starting with 30 days happens a lot because it's the most common modality of how treatment is done. But you got to think, why is it done that way most often? Because it gets compensated.
Yeah.
By the insurance companies. And that's simply, if insurance companies are dictating what the treatment looks like, then how individualized is that for your loved one?
And we're going to get into the insurance. Right. That's going to be the next thing. But what can the families do? What can we educate the families on today of how can they make, if they're driven by insurance, which a lot of people are, and I understand that. They want to utilize their insurance. They don't want to come out of pocket, $30,000 when they have an insurance policy. What can they do to make a 30-day standard 28-day run-of-the-mill 30-day program? What can they do to make it more successful, to increase the chances that their loved one will continue to move forward once they leave there?
It's all going to depend on what they do after at that point, because that on its own will rarely stand up to the test of time. It's like if we're going to build a house and we're going to take time building a foundation, and I say, hey, you've got 30 days to build this foundation, and no matter what it looks like, after 30 days, you're going to have to put the second story on this thing. As a builder, you think, well, I'll do my best, but I can't just start on the second story unless the foundation's put down. And that's the problem with that time constraint, that time constraint, is that the foundation most often is not solid at that point. And then you're going to try to build the second story to put things on top of them that they're not emotionally, spiritually, physically ready to endure. And then they rush back into life, hoping that they're going to be able to handle this. And like I said, the amount of time it takes to get into that hole, you're not digging out of it in that amount of time. Yeah. You're not. So for a family, I would say one of the main things is a family don't expect miracles in that amount of time. Even if they have a huge conversion, a change of heart, I wouldn't expect them to come back and just hit home runs.
And they're going to look better because they're eating, they're getting some sleep.
They got some color in their face.
Yeah, they got some color. Mm-hmm. They're not slurring their words, right? They're going to look better and they're going to sound better, but they're nowhere near ready to go. Yeah. They're not ready to set the world on fire.
Yeah.
One thing that I think that can greatly benefit families that I talk about all the time is, when an individual goes into 30 days or 28 days or really any treatment and they're just kind of their pants are on fire and they wave the flag and say, hey, I want to go to treatment. Mm-hmm. They're going into treatment thinking in their head that they still have a lot of options, that the family is going to continue this or continue that, and it's just going to be as it was when they got out. And if the family doesn't do their part to set some boundaries of their own, and to let that individual know, how their addiction has really impacted them, to create some desperation for that individual to have the best chance possible while in that 30 days. And because look, if I feel like I've got options, I don't have a lot of desperation.
Yeah.
So if my job and what I truly believe in is getting the family to motivate that individual, to motivate the desperation, to create the willingness in that individual to not just sit in the chair in the program, but to be vulnerable as possible, as transparent as possible, and with a commitment to move forward into aftercare once they leave there.
Mm-hmm. And that's a family should hold their feet to the fire in that way too. Like, look, this is the beginning. This is by no means the end of it. I believe sober living or case management, ongoing, someone keeping up tabs with them and hold them accountable to doing the things that they're supposed to do for putting their recovery first, it's absolutely essential. Mm-hmm. Whether that be, having somebody stick with them like a coach that works with them and the family, whether it's sober living with case management involved, like where there's some oversight. And the other issue with a short-term treatment stay is normally there's not much family involvement in that, so the family doesn't really know from the treatment center what to expect when it's over. It's just kind of like, hey, come pick him up.
Yeah.
His 30 days are up. And they haven't been kept in the loop. They haven't really had sessions where this is discussed or what the next step needs to be, because the treatment center in that amount of time doesn't do a lot of engagement with the family because they don't really have time to. So
insurance doesn't reimburse it,
right? And they talk to the individual who's in treatment about what he should do, and they try to convince him or her what they should do, but the family has no involvement in that decision. Then there's not a whole lot of accountability for them to hold their feet to the fire when they leave to do that which the treatment center has attempted to convince them to do.
You know who I feel sorry for? And this happens a lot. I see it all the time. And I'm sure the public out there knows it and shaking their head in agreement with their loved ones. As a guy or a girl, they go to 30 days of treatment. They get signed in IOP. They go to sober living. That's the standard, right? Mm-hmm. 30 days of treatment, IOP, sober living. Mm-hmm. They don't do well because the foundation wasn't properly built in the 30 days. It wasn't enough time. Mm-hmm. And they go out, they burn it down. They cycle back through another 30 days, back in IOP, back into sober living. Goes out again, back in this 30 days, back in this IOP, back in. It's just this. Well, he just really, got to go to 30 days, and these guys fall into that, and these girls fall into that, and it's just a cycle over and over again. And man, I think about some of these guys, some of these girls that that's their third or fourth time in 30 days IOP and sober living, and I'm like, God, I would just want to jump off a bridge if, at that point. It just like, what's the point, man? There's got to be some folks to be like, hey, let's maybe try something different.
And the person who's relapsing is the one who's considered the failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the system The system is set up where they don't really have the best opportunity to thrive in that system.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes you'll see a quarterback that gets drafted to a poor team in the NFL, and they'll blame the quarterback for it, and they'll jettison them away, and then they go and they end up having a better career somewhere else because the system that they got drafted into was not really best suited for them.
Right.
And there is fault on their part.
Sure.
But the fact of it is if you're expecting somebody to have a beautiful home and skimp on the foundation and think it's going to work, and how long is this place going to work? Yeah, it may stand up for 6 months.
Yeah.
But what happens when the first big storm comes?
Yeah.
When the wife leaves, where she doesn't come back, where they lose the job, where their kid gets sick? What happens when things don't go their way? Or what happens when things go totally their way and everything works out and there's not a cloud on the horizon and they're making money and they're like, man, I made such a big deal about this. Why? Because their foundation in truth, surrender, and honesty about their alcoholism and addiction was never really taken root. And when whatever it is comes, they're not ready.
Mm-hmm. I got a guy right now that he had a lot of stuff. He had a lot of baggage he was bringing to the table. Family was willing, like, there's this Medicaid program up the road. That's what we'll do. Mm-hmm. He went there. He was willing. I drove him up there. The dude wanted something different. He did what he was supposed to do in that program. They moved him to, what is it, the 3.0 house, I think, or 3.1 house, where it's a little more structured than a sober living.
Yeah.
Put him in IOP. He peeled off.
Yeah.
Resurfaced a couple days later, full of shame and guilt, wanting to go back. He goes back. The family just notified me yesterday and said, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you. He's out again, and we're just, wondering if you would talk to him." I was very direct. I said, the problem is his needs are not being addressed. He's in an inappropriate level of care.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of stuff that was not able to be addressed at that level of care that he was in.
Yeah.
And I fear that this will continue until that is addressed.
And let's be honest, IOP programs, it's not that there's anything inherently wrong with IOP programs, but they are not depth programs.
No. Mm-mm.
If you didn't get to something deep within the inpatient portion of your treatment, IOP is not about going into depth.
And let's say one session there. Mm-hmm. Like you've been in there a little bit and you're in one session and then you have a little breakthrough. In that 3-hour window that you're at IOP, or the 4-hour window, mm-hmm. let's give them some grace. Let's say 5-hour window that you're in that class that day. Mm-hmm. And you have a little breakthrough. Well, by the time the class is over, they're out, or the session is over, they're out on their phone completely distracting themselves from further fostering that healing process.
Right. And they're going back to a sober living, or they're going back home, and they're not going to get through that. It's not an intensive process. One of the main issues with just therapy in general is that we have this model of therapy, and IOP fits this model, the intensive outpatient model, because you normally meet with your therapist once a week. And when people do therapy outside of treatment, that's a very common model. I meet with my therapist weekly or biweekly. You got to think those are 50-minute sessions on normal. 50 minutes. They say hour, but they're really 50 minutes. So when you check in with a therapist for your 50-minute session, you're going to get into it and you're going to say, okay, well, how was this last week? Well, you catch them up for the first 10, 15 minutes. Then you get into some work. Okay, now we're going to get into our work for the week. You got about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to do that. And then for the last 10 minutes or so, you're going to wrap that up, and you're going to talk about the assignments or what's due for the next week. So the whole depth of the entire therapy session is about 20 minutes. So I think about it like this. If I was going to dig a hole, if I was going to get to the root of an issue, would I want to dig that hole for 8 hours straight or 24 hours straight for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, get to the real root of it? Or would I rather every week go 20 minutes deep and then take the leaves out that came every other week? Because that hole gets filled back up every week. And that's why treatment, when it's really done correctly and right, is an intensive process where you're getting into the weeds, you're getting into the depth, you're digging through it, and you're getting to the bottom of it. Yeah. And that can't be done by coming here for 1 hour, coming here for 1 hour, coming here for 1 hour every other day.
And that's why when you notice, it's your programs like we're describing, the 30-day model, larger programs, 28-day model, they can't really show you what recovery is going to feel like while you're in there. They can basically do the best they can and just tell you what recovery can look like if you do A, B, C, and D once you leave here. Mm-hmm. But there are some programs, some really good, your smaller mom and pop programs, and some larger programs that with time they can show you how recovery feels while you're in there. And that's what healing is. Mm-hmm. But even after 90 days, you're like a baby giraffe. I mean, you have a 90-day men's program. Mm-hmm. How are these guys really when they leave 90 days?
Oh, I never feel like we have enough time, even in that amount of time. There's always, I feel like, have we turned over every stone? No, I wish we have. And for the most part, we're 90-day minimum, so people come for at least 90 days. That's the good thing.
Yeah.
Because the rapport building process is at least normally 2 weeks to a month. That means where the guy comes in, he's standoffish in the beginning, He doesn't know what kind of place this is. Then the culture will start to kind of creep in, and they'll start to feel comfortable.
Or don't you get some of the guys that overly trust you immediately right out of the gate, and that's some of their stuff they're bringing to the table too?
Well, it's normally
it's not authentic.
And that could be a trauma experience too. They come and then they have a vulnerability dump where they just completely let it all out, all the dark stuff, and then they want to leave because they've exposed themselves and they're so embarrassed and ashamed of what they've shared with these people they barely know. That has its own effect. But the most common situation is one where it's going to take a guy a while to warm up with us. It's just like going to a new school. You got to think, parents, when you're considering picking a place for your loved one, like, think about this. Where did they go to school? Did they do well in the big, 3,000 student high school? Did you send them to a private school where there was more individualized focus? Where did they go to college? Did they go to some huge university where they could be counted on to go to class every day? Or did you have to have a little bit more intensive focus on them where if they went to class, if they didn't go to class, you knew, and they had a smaller, did they do better in a situation where there was less people? And for the most part, addicts do better in a situation where there's a little bit more focus on them.
Yeah.
Because we are so good at BSing our way through life and just saying yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and getting through the process and never really changing underneath the surface that we can slide through situations where there's a lot of people. And that's the most dangerous thing. The people that are the most compliant in treatment are the people that die the quickest, in my experience. And that's almost 20 years now of doing this. I've had people that showed up really well in treatment, but we never really got to the depth.
Yeah.
And they went out, and before I knew it, they'd either killed themselves or they'd overdosed within months or a year.
They didn't ruffle any feathers in treatment.
No.
Followed every rule. Compliance versus surrender.
And if you are in a situation where you don't have a lot of time, you're just dumbfounded. You're like, I thought the guy did so well. But if you really look at yourself energetically and you're really in tune with yourself, you can see I'm never surprised by the things that happen when people leave my place, whether they stay sober, whether they relapse. A lot of times we see it. And sometimes it's simply just not enough time. Sometimes it is they've fought it so hard and they just want to hold on to that one last piece of control. And they need to see it for themselves that they hear us, they want to believe us, but there's some part of them that's so strong, that fight is just so intensely strong, that darkness in them needs to have one last chance to prove that you can't do it on your own.
Right.
And then they have it, then they're willing to come back.
Mm-hmm.
That happens most often if somebody just has to show the world that they got this handled.
Yeah.
And want to prove their family wrong that intervened on them or whatever it is, whatever that piss and vinegar is within you.
Yeah.
That you got to.
For me, it was an option.
Pride.
I thought I had options.
Yeah.
And while I was sitting in that program thinking that I had an option to do something else, I was not engaged.
Yeah.
So I had to walk out of that program, flip everybody out, fear my mom, put fear in my mom and my dad that I walked out of treatment yet again. They've done all this work and he's just, pissing it away. I had to have that experience of walking out and realizing and testing that option to realize that it indeed was not an option.
Yeah.
Then surrender came, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah. And hopefully in a situation like ours, sometimes we do have people leave, but they come back if the family can hold their ground.
Yeah.
And not give into it. Mm-hmm. They will eventually see like the world that they envisioned it to be and the world that actually is waiting for them, two totally different things. And that reality smacks them in the face. And they're like, hold on. Before I throw away this foundation I've almost completed.
Mm-hmm. And see that I'm sorry to interrupt you, but a family that is, and we're going to get into this, this is one of the points I want to talk about, is the family left in the dark in a lot of programs. Like in your better programs, when we know that little Johnny or Susie is thinking about eloping, we can prep the family, or you guys can prep the family and get them prepared for that event when it happens. But in your large volume treatment program, there's no prep work with the family. So when Johnny or Susie gets a wire in them and says, hey, I got to go, or I'm leaving early, or I'm not doing this, the families are caught off guard, and the only thing they know to do is, well, hell, he's leaving. I guess I got to go pick him up. Mm-hmm. And then it goes over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
See it all the time.
Right.
Which really at the core of all of this is that the more education the family can get around what exactly the problem is, the better off everyone's going to be.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And the fact of it is people spend a lot more time, like you said, picking the color of their vehicle than they do the treatment center that they send their loved one in. And this is a life or death experience.
Yes.
It is. There's no doubt about it. I look at everyone who comes to our place as if they're like in stage 4 cancer. Like this is a terminal person without a very distinct and powerful turnaround. There's only one way they're going. This ship has to be turned around, and it's not easy to turn a ship around. So I feel families are constrained by finances because treatment's not cheap, but nothing that matters in life is. And they're scared that their loved one won't agree to go to longer term.
So they start negotiating in their head with
before it ever happens. And a lot of times families and you know this in your experience, that families don't ever understand how much power they actually hold.
They don't know.
No. And you hold a lot more power. If you hear me say anything as a family member, you hold a lot more power than you realize. You hold the keys and you don't realize it. And it's not about lording yourself over someone. There's a big push in treatment too that your loved one is in treatment. They're in control of their treatment. They make all the decisions. You can't push your decisions on them or anything of that nature. The truth is like sometimes their brains are not in a situation to make all these big decisions.
They aren't.
They're just not. And I'm not trying to say that people don't have self-actualization. That's what our goal is in our treatment centers, to get somebody to self-actualize. I want them off mom and dad's payroll. I want them out of their basement. I want them on their own, living independently. But there's a process to get there, and it's not going to happen just like that. That's where we hope to get. But to expect a person who just got through this, their brain's still befogged, and they're sitting there making decisions on aftercare and what they're going to do and what kind of job they're going to get.
They're not ready for it.
It's really tough to.
The insanity is still there.
Yeah. My old mentor used to say, he's like, would you let a baby drive your car?
Right.
And the guys used to get pissed off when they heard that, because it's like, you're calling me a baby.
Right.
But it's not, I wouldn't say it's a dollar for dollar analogy, but in some ways there is so much autonomy given because of HIPAA and everything else to the person that's in treatment. We're acting like that they're going to make the best decision for themselves every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that the family has no right to even put any of their...
Yeah, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah,
when it's insanity. Yeah. I relate it because I have a mother I've been living with Alzheimer's in my life for the last 5 years, and she's really progressed. And so when I'm talking to family, like I relate it to also, like my mom, I love her to death. She's my mom. She literally brought me into this world, and she saved my life from addiction through her actions. But at this time, like she can't have autonomy in making decisions for her health and really her living situation when she eats or really anything. She's not able. It would be abusive for me or any of us to allow her to call the shots in her care. Mm-hmm. She's just not able. Right. And an addicted individual is the same way. Sure, it's not Alzheimer's, but it's insanity. Now, where my mother will not return to sanity, an addicted individual can return to sanity. Mm-hmm. Actually can come out of this better than when they went in it. Yeah. That's not going to happen with Alzheimer's. Right. But the insanity is insanity.
And the problem is that just like if you had a dirty car and you washed it, all of a sudden you fall in love with it again and you think, man, hey, I should have just washed this thing a long time ago. When someone goes to treatment, whether it's 30 days, 90 days, they are going to look better. They are going to sound better. It's going to look like a new car, and you're like, hey, let's take it out.
It drives better.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is it's just been washed.
Mm-hmm. So I think moving along here into our second topic, I think this is a good point to segue, is that families are generally entering 30-day, 28-day treatment models because they're in network with the insurance and they want to utilize their insurance. They, why am I going to pay $15K or $20K when my insurance will take everything? And besides that, they're going to, this is another topic, which we covered a little bit of it yesterday on the porch, is, well, damn, they're going to fly me out there and it's not going to cost me anything. God, that's a home run. That's where I'm going. So insurance, I want to get into this second thing that families need to be aware of. And the minute you mention the word insurance, it's like reading tax laws. You think it's going to be boring, but man, like what I'm seeing is facilities, and again, this is not every single one, but I see this more often than not, is somebody's treatment plan where they may have marketed to you that it's an individualized treatment plan, but a treatment plan is to get insurance to keep you there and insurance to be willing to keep you there. And it's to satisfy reimbursement. It's not to satisfy what's best for the client. Would you agree? And that's
I think it's really important for people to understand what in-network versus out-of-network means as far as treatment goes.
And also to understand, like, what does care look like? What is it really driven by in an insurance?
Well, let's talk about in-network first. In-network, in breaking down, means that if a facility, if a treatment center is in network with a payer, that means that insurance company and that treatment center have contracted. They have an amount that they are going to get paid, and there's an amount of days that they are going to be able to stay there. Before you even come there, that's already been decided. A lot of people don't understand that. So when an in-network place, meaning their best, is saying that they're going to do individualized treatment, I don't necessarily believe that's possible, because you already know how long they're going to be there, whether they overdosed on fentanyl for the fourth time that week or they just got their first DUI. They're going to get the same number of days, the same number of coverage, and they're going to get paid the same for each person they bring in. That's why venture capital money and everything only really wants in-network facilities, because they can count on the amount of money they're going to get. They know if they get this many beds filled, they're going to get this paid for this much. So it's a situation which people just need to understand this is what you're going to get.
Right.
And that also means that it's a volume game, because treatment centers, if they're going to take that contract that they've signed, means that they're going to get paid a lesser amount than an out-of-network facility, but they're going to make up for it with volume. So they're going to have 50, 100, 200 beds. They're going to have multiple facilities across the United States.
So to get that volume, they've got to be the top of Google.
For sure. Yeah.
So in order to be the top of Google, you got to do pay-per-click.
For sure.
And in order for you to be at the top of Google with pay-per-click, what you dropping down money-wise?
Anywhere between $250,000 and over $1 million a month.
You got to think folks, almost $1 million a month,
or over $1 million a month.
There
are many places that spend over $1 million a month because they have thousands of beds to fill, and they look at it as cost per acquisition. Well, I spend $5,000 to get $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
So they factor that in there, but they know what they're going to have to spend to get what they get from that. And the truth about it is this is a life or death situation that families feel they have to find somewhere fast. And the first place they look is Google. And the first place they find is going to be a place like this. And it may fit within their financial parameters, and it may be their only option. But to expect miracles to happen in that regard, it's hard.
Right.
You're going to have to do something probably beyond and on top of that. That's not going to be the only answer. And in fact, it just rarely ever is. And I don't have an axe to grind with in-network but it's never been my intention to go in network because I feel constrained by the insurance companies dictating to me what treatment looks like. In an in-network facility, they want your loved one to have their phone, once they get dropped out of a residential level of care, which is the highest level of care, they'll drop them down to a lower level. And that means they get their phone, they get more rights, they get more freedoms. And that's where I'm talking about building the second story before the foundation is finished. We're always rushing through this process, and it can't be rushed. I can't stress it enough. I've seen it so many times, and you think the person has failed, but the system is built in a way where it's not meant for them to get better.
That's really true, isn't it? It's not
I don't know that that's the goal.
Right.
But sometimes it has been really hard to accept that. When I look at an insurance company, I'm like, actuarially, they have to know. They look at the data each and every day of how this works or how this doesn't work. They want them to go to IOP first. They want them to fail at IOP before they'll let them go to residential. So normally someone with an intensive drug problem will go to IOP, and they'll say, well, it wasn't that intense, so they don't need a residential level of care. They fail IOP. If they fail IOP a couple times, well, then they'll allow them to go to residential level of care.
Now
for 30 days.
Right.
And they'll only approve 14 days of that or 8 days of that, and then they'll move them to a lower level of care.
And the insurance will not pay for family programming, correct?
No, I mean in residential treatment, it's a bundled charge. You charge so much for every day, so everything that you do is included in that charge. Some places may bill in a way where they bill for each individual thing that's done, but in our experience, if you are a residential treatment program, you just bill so much per day, and every service that you include is included in that residential bundle.
So they're not including family programming just because it adds more cost to them.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Well, I don't know why or why not a place wouldn't, other than it's a manpower situation and time. Like if this therapist has 15, 20 people on their caseload, how many family calls are they going to make a week?
None.
They might make one over the 30 days. If they've only met with the guy 2 times, what are they going to tell the family? I mean, you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, but you just met the guy, and you might even say his name wrong.
Yeah.
By the time you call the family, you really want to have that call?
Yeah.
You want to get on the phone with that family and disappoint them because they say, this guy didn't know my son and daughter at all. They're going to see right through it because the family has so much hope that this is going to work because they finally agreed to go. And the hope that just on a prayer that this is going to work. And then they're going to call a therapist who doesn't even know.
Pronounce the name wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. Doesn't know the kids' names.
Yeah, and doesn't know the kids' names, doesn't know the deeper nuances of what makes this person tick. And then the family's going to leave there saying, well, this ain't going to work. They don't want to get into that.
Mm-hmm. And then they're
not expected to either. They're like, look, man, you're not our client. He's our client.
Right. And see, look, the people that are in treatment, that are in rehab, people like me, people like you who've gone to treatment, we're not stupid. We can pick up on bullshit in a second. Like, I remember many treatment centers that I went to was like, what's going on here? Like, I mean, I know I smoked crack. I know I'm probably not the one to be trusted 100% here, and I'm being told I can't trust any of my decisions, but this smells like bullshit, Like some of the stuff, like sitting in there listening to this lecture, I'm like, this is not going to get me sober.
And one thing that we are in tune with is energy. Addicts and alcoholics, there's a seen world and there's an unseen world. And the unseen world we have a very close kinship with. So when we go in a place, we feel it.
Mm-hmm. So what are they going to do? They're going to come out. They're going to experience that. Mm-hmm. And they're going to come out.
They don't feel the genuineness.
Right. They don't. It's not at all.
Because it's impossible.
Yeah, it's not there. It's not there. Even when the clinician is like just wants to see everybody get well and is really putting everything they're into it, they're overloaded.
Yeah,
they're swamped.
Yeah,
and they're pulled in 20 different directions.
And the lion's share of the burden of proof that is in documentation. So they have to write very copious, long notes that satisfy the insurance company to prove that they've done the work that they have, so the place will get reimbursed by the insurance company. So they're more dotting the I's and crossing the T's than they are doing the depth work that needs to be done with the person. They have to prove that they did it. I don't want to say that like these are inherently bad people at all. These are well-meaning, well-trained, passionate people that a system makes it really hard for them to do the deep work. And they hope that it works. I can't say that I don't hope that it works. Even at 90 or 120, 150 days that somebody spends with me, I still hope that it works with everything I got. Yeah. Because I know there's still some pitfalls ahead. I know there's still some pieces that they are going to have to grow through. I want to prepare them for it. Yeah, I look at it like this. I'm like, imagine that when they leave my place, there's a minefield of 100 yards in front of them. And I say, would you like to be here 30 days and learn where 20% of those mines are and take your chance with the rest of them? Or would you rather stay here long enough where I show you every mine in this 100 yards? Would you rather take your chance after knowing where 20 of them are? Or do you want to know where all 100 of them are?
That's a great analogy.
To ask a family that, would you rather them know where 20% of the mines are, or would you rather them know where all of them are? Mm-hmm. Because I want to prepare someone for the truth of their situation. This is a serious situation. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much family you have, no matter what you're holding on to that you think you still got it going on, you are sitting here getting ready to walk through a minefield. And would you like to know? Would you like to have the experience of walking through it? Do you want to do it alone? Do you want to do it with me, holding my hand? Because I've been through the damn minefield. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, know where they all are.
Yeah. Would you rather have mentorship? Would you rather have help getting through that? Or do you just want to take your chances? Because the guy is more likely to take chances than the family will. The family's like, no. And that's an issue too. A lot of times with a shorter term program, they will say, well, the insurance is run out, and they'll call the family. They'll be like, hey, he's not ready to go, but we need $60,000 to keep him another month, or $40,000 to keep him another month. And the family's just like, oh my God, they're not prepared for it. And they feel that, what am I going to do? I don't have it.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to come pick him up. Well, you're going to have to come pick him up if you can't pay.
Yeah.
That's the saddest part about it is when the insurance runs out, I don't know, it's at least 99% of treatment programs they'll go that day or the next day. They won't give him any time. They're like, hey, figure it out. He can't stay here.
Yeah, man, I've seen that before, and I'm like, man, let them stay a couple of days to like put a plan in place. Yeah. And it doesn't happen.
I would never kick anybody out if their insurance ran out. Mm-hmm. They're going to stay 90 days at least, and they're going to stay normally as long as I need to keep them, I believe. As long as they're willing, as long as their family's willing, as long as I'm willing, because I look at it like a long-term investment. Yeah, the insurance company may have quit paying me. That's a gamble that I made. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to make the family pay for that. I made the gamble as a business owner. And if someone's insurance runs out and they leave treatment, they almost never stay sober. So what kind of outcome am I expecting if I say, hey, your insurance run out, you got to go? No. I want to keep them through the process because they most likely they have a chance of staying sober if that's the case. I eat it on the front end, but that's okay. You know what? That's a happy family down the line.
Yeah.
Because that family, if they're forced to come pick them up, what kind of opinion are they going to have of you, your program, who you are as a person? Yeah. I'm in this for the long haul. I didn't do this because I felt sorry for these suckers. I was a homeless drug addict. My family endured all the horrors of my addiction. I went through it firsthand. I know what it takes.
We're ambassadors. We're ambassadors of the field itself. Yeah. And every action we take reflects the entire field.
Yeah, and I take that seriously.
Yeah.
The last thing I'd ever want to happen is for somebody to have some opinion of the offering that I gave them as being subpar or average or terrible.
Yeah.
You know, that's just like, I take that personal. And the problem with many treatment centers is there's nobody to take it personal. It's a big conglomerate that owns it.
Right.
They got an exit strategy.
Yeah.
They're ready to, they're building up their numbers right now and signing their in-network contracts so they can sell in 3 to 5 years. to a bigger venture capital group. It's completely pervasive in our field.
So what happens is the guy gets wrapped up in this, the girl gets wrapped up in that. Families unknowingly, they don't know what to do. They feel like that's the norm and this is what it's supposed to be. That guy, as I was mentioning earlier, who sees a lot of this stuff, an addicted individual, we're pretty in tune with, like, can call BS. He's like, well, this is bullshit. Goes out and uses it again. And then refuses to go back because that's what he thinks treatment is. That's what he thinks all treatment is. That's what the families think all treatment is. And the next thing you know, you hear all this stuff around the country about treatment sucks and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that is the overwhelming belief of the public, is that treatment doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
And it's really hard because it's a constrained system, and where there's lack of money, there's lack of reimbursement, there's lack of all kinds of things that make it not work.
Yeah.
From time. I mean, we're trying to put Band-Aids on bullet holes a lot of times. What we're asked to do is miracle work, and we're not given enough time to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes a family will bring their loved one to us, and they're not happy at like a month where they are in the process because they think they should be further along. They're like, man, I'm worried he's just not responding to this. And I'm like, listen, have you ever had your home worked on? You ever redid your kitchen or your bathroom? Like, if you came in after they did the demo work and said, you've destroyed my house.
Yeah.
It's never going to, I mean, what have you done?
Yeah.
We're not done yet.
Right. I use the haircut example.
Yeah.
I use the haircut example when I've been talking about interventions, because on the front end, they're like, man, they're really confused. They're just like, man, well, I don't know what about this? What about that? Because they're trying to understand what it's going to look like 2 days from now. Then I like to take them step by step. And I'm like, look, this is kind of like a haircut. It looks like hell until you're done.
Yeah.
Right? You sit down in the chair, you got your hair going this way, you got some stuff in it, I said it can look pretty crazy until it's done.
Yeah. And getting better is not a linear process. It's just not. It's like a roller coaster. If I had to put it like anything, like even over 90, 150 days that someone's
But that's just life.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm on the roller coaster now. I got ups and downs.
We're going to hit a plateau, and then we're going to have to raise to another level.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to challenge you again. And all of a sudden, you thought it was easy. It's about to get hard again.
Yeah. I mean, aren't you experiencing that now, almost 20 years into this deal? Still the roller coaster. That's life.
That is life.
It's life.
But we've been sheltered. Addicts and alcoholics been sheltered, living a life of running away from reality forever. I mean, that's the truth. Is we're not used to if we have the problems, we don't face them.
Mm-hmm. I can remember.
We run away.
Dude, I wouldn't even open my mail. I remember, my mail would just stack up and stack up and stack up. Like, I didn't want to see anything. I'm just running from everything.
Yeah. I'd always say it's like I started a fire and I never turned around. I just kept walking. Right. Because I knew if I ever turned around and looked at it, it just engulfed me and everybody around me. Yeah. I just could not face it. And that's the truth is in 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, they may not have faced their truth yet. They may not have turned around and even stared it down because the fear of that and the knowing that they're not really prepared to face that, it's just going to perpetuate the system and the cycle. And
they're going in there thinking that drugs are their problem.
Yeah.
Or drinking is their problem.
Yeah.
So there's no way that an individual is, much less in that short of amount of time and that volume of people in a program like that the why of why they were using drugs and drinking to start with can be really addressed, much less the stuff that we used, as you speak of, before we picked up drink and drug to change the way we feel. That first thing we went to, like porn or, relationships or food, like whatever. Like there's no way that they can address any of that. And that's, you see, when guys leave treatment after 90 days, 120 days, are they picking up? Do they go back? Do they go back to the first thing that they used? Are you seeing that?
Many times. And that's kind of like what's nice about having like a kind of like a transitional period before they're like completely on their own is you get to see some of these going back to the phone, getting on Tinder, doing some of the stuff that, bringing back in some of the pieces that are unmanageable in their lives, and then being able to therapeutically work through them and say, hey, what, how'd that feel? What'd that bring you? What are the belief systems that are still coming up? This trauma work we've been doing, this trauma is about, in many ways, it's about the messages and the affirmations, the belief systems that are built through the things that we've endured in our life, mainly from childhood, but all through our lives. They built that belief system. And so a lot of times those primary kind of addictions, many times like food or sex, is the first escape for many addicts and alcoholics. If you look back on many of our lives, most of us escaped when we were young because we had a tough situation, whatever that may have been, or we embodied life as a tough situation. We saw it as a tough situation. We turned to those escapes first. And so then the chemical comes in at 12, 15, 16 years old, and that becomes primary. That becomes the driving force. But when we take that away in treatment, a lot of times we see that the guys revert back to the food, revert back to the sex, the love, the needing, the affirmation from another person, trying to fill that void within themselves through an external force, whatever that may be. And that's trauma-based. And if we're not getting to the root of those pieces, they'll still leave there empty, expecting the world to fill them instead of them to fill the world. Yeah. And it's to think that you're going to cover that kind of ground in a short amount of time is hard. Yeah. And no matter how talented the therapist is, they are like in the big book. It says, sometimes we must. Dr. Silkworth says sometimes we must feel our own inadequacy. Because what with our scientific approach to things, we're doing the best we can, but there's some level of synthetic, or there's some level of good that we can't reach. Yeah. And the time is the most important thing that you come to when you want to have that, because they have to build a rapport first. They have to believe in us. They have to believe in it that we care first. A family has to believe that we care first. The person that's with us has to believe that we care first. And that can't be sold. Yeah. That has to be felt. Yeah. The next thing is they have to believe that we can help them, that we're talented enough, that we're experts enough at what we do to really help them. I mean, because you can care and not help. Mm-hmm. You can care all day that you want to land this plane, but you don't know how to land the plane. Right. You can want to live, but if you don't know you haven't been trained on how to put that plane on the ground, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of well-meaning individuals in the world that care a lot that can't land the plane. And I think, this would just be a thought, but we are always trying to evidence-base everything to prove it to the insurance companies, because that's what they want. They want scientific-based facts about what is the therapies that you are doing, the modalities that you are using effective. And there's some magic that gets lost in that, because there's something special and that's known when somebody who's been through it, when you talk to them. My dad's not an alcoholic, but my dad was in Vietnam. And the most lit up and the biggest smiles and the most engaged I've ever seen him be is when one of his guys that he fought there with comes to our house. When I was growing up, it only happened like 2 or 3 times. A guy come in from Boston that he fought with over there. And the way they would bond, the way they would talk, that shared experience was so powerful that I don't think I ever saw my dad in that same light again. Even with his other friendships and everything else, there was something there. And when a therapist, when a counselor has been through the gates of hell and knows how to connect with the person that they're going through with, there's something special that happens that can't be read on a meter. Yeah. Energetically it can, but scientifically proven in how it looks on documentation that goes to prove so you can get paid, there's something lost in that translation. And we're always attempting to move towards this model, this medical scientific model, to prove that what we're doing works, because we always have to prove the burden of proof is always on the treatment center. Yeah. To prove to the insurance company that it's worthy, that what we're doing matters, that it works. And they're always constantly trying to prove that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And the minute that you say he's doing better, they're saying, well, he's ready to go.
Ready to go. Get him out of here. Pack him up. Get him up, you know?
The system is tough.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. There is no perfect system, and we know how to interact within the system. We do the best we can. We honor the rules. We do what we're supposed to do. You know, but there's some special aspect of things that it's a spiritually based that happens when a person gets better. That there's no notes that are going to define it. It can't be written. It can only be felt and experienced. Right. When somebody changes, there's a light that goes on. There's a light bulb behind their eyes. There's something that happens. That soul gets lit on fire again, and you can feel it. And everybody knows. Mm-hmm. You might still have doubts, and you might know there's still some shit that they're going to have to go through.
Yeah, it's still a little squirrely in some spots, but you know when that...
Yeah, but when somebody's soul gets lit on fire, it's obvious. To a person whose soul has been lit on fire as well.
Yeah.
Like you're joining us. Welcome.
We've covered the 30-day. Mm-hmm. We talked about the insurance. So people are ending up in these places. Well, that's what they see most of, are these places. Not they're ending up in these places. But it's largely due to why it's in front of the family so much is from the marketing that they're doing. Do you have some thoughts on that? I knew that you did.
Yeah.
That's why I said it like that.
Being a family-owned provider like I am.
And you talked about it a little bit. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You talked about it a little bit about the millions that they'll spend on pay-per-click. What's it like being a mom and pop, small, dedicated program that can't nearly compete with that pay-per-click stuff?
You realize that the landscape has changed.
Yeah.
You know, we've been open, this is our 10th year right now, and I've been working in the field 17 years. So I've seen the changes that have happened over the course of that amount of time. And what used to be more mom and pop owned places, family owned, have been replaced by bigger conglomerates, hospital systems, venture capital groups that have gotten into the space because they see the profit. They see that the mental health of the world is declining at such a massive rate. And the anxiety levels, the depression, and the coupled addiction problems that come along with that are staggering. So they're like, hey, this is a emerging field in which we need to get our money in because we're going to get a good return. Mm-hmm. So many times I see programs open that what they really are is a marketing company that has a place to send you, rather than building a place of healing that markets who they are. They have the marketing plan, and they'll figure the rest out. They know they need to have a therapist, a doctor, a this and that. They fill their slots.
Yes.
They check their boxes. But the heart and soul of what it really takes to change somebody's life may or may not be there, depending on who they hire and depending on the time constraints in which they do it. And it is a machine because they have beds to fill, many beds to fill, and they turn over every month. So they constantly have to have an influx of people. So that's where you get to spending over $1 million a month. And I'm a pop place. I'm not even a mom place. I'm just a pop place.
You're a pop place.
Yeah, I'm a pop place. Right?
Yeah, but it's a good place.
Yeah. But how am I going to... I think the most I ever spent on pay-per-click was $3,000 a month, and it didn't bring
You
crap.
hated that.
Yeah. It didn't bring anything.
Right. Because
I'm competing. Yeah, like I'm throwing my 3,000 against $1 million.
Right.
And hoping that, like a crumb's going to fall my way.
Right.
I don't even do that anymore because I know it's a game I can't win.
That's like you out there with a fishing pole and a bobber. And you got a fishing fleet coming by with nets, and you're like, well, I'm going to get my share.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way.
And as a small provider, you do live off the crumbs. Mm-hmm. Sadly, like sometimes I don't even know how people find us. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know how you ended up in our spider web, but we're going to do the best we can for you.
But they do.
Yeah.
But by the time they've gotten to you, they have been through, oftentimes, they've been through the ringer with what we described.
Yeah. And their trust, like, they hear me and they're like, I just hope that you are really who you say you are.
Yeah.
I just hope that you're as genuine as you seem to be.
Yep.
I just hope, because they've already put their hope in a lot of people who
Yep.
disappointed, a lot of systems that disappointed. And the fact of it is they paid good money for it. They bought a Lexus, but they didn't get a Lexus.
Mm-hmm.
That happens.
Yeah.
Because every place looks good online. They're all holistic healing places of the mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
They all sound the same. AI's writing all their pages.
Yeah.
It all looks and sounds good.
Right.
It's all homogenized, though. And the fact of the matter is if there's 25,000 treatment centers in the United States, there's probably 100 of them that are great.
Yeah. That's true.
The rest of them are average or
That's
below.
true. Yeah.
And the chances of you finding those 100 are so slim, especially if you're going online to find it.
Yeah.
Because it's not geared. That's a game that you got to think. The more you advertise, think about all the things that are advertised the most. Are they healthy for you? If you look from Coca-Cola to whatever to McDonald's, like, is this really good for you? Why they got to spend so much to advertise? Are the best things the ones that got to spend the most to advertise? And in treatment, do you think that is any different?
You're right.
So if you got to spend a ton to make a ton, and that's the game now. That's why in the 17 years I've been doing this, it's become hard. In the 10 years I've had my own place, it's been harder and harder. Sometimes I just want to throw my hands up in the air and say, I can't do this anymore. Because it becomes harder and harder to make it because we are being put, like I said yesterday, it's like Walmart's come to town.
So I'm on a mission, and I've made it pretty open on social media, is like educate the families. I want people to know if we can educate them and educate them and educate them, then they can make some better decisions. And it's not saying that 30 days of treatment isn't good or that you can't get well there, but know what you're getting into before you go. And we can see some change, right? So that's my mission here with podcasts, with Intervention on Call, the free family support groups, is to like educate, inform them. Mm-hmm. So we can hopefully, God, I don't know. I don't see any out though, really. I don't see how, unless social just gets so big that we change the population like that, the public's knowledge around it. But these VC programs are still going to be here. Yeah,
it still is going to be here, and it. A lot of times, I get approached by people that want to start treatment programs or want to do whatever, and I'm like, why do you want to do it? Why? And they say, well, I hear there's a good margin in it, or I hear there's, I love recovery, I'd like to make some money. And I'm like, dude, you should probably start a Smoothie King. There's a lot easier ways in the world to make a living than doing this kind of work. Mm-hmm. It's not for the faint of heart. And as being somebody in it, I only want other passionate people in it. There's enough riffraff and there's enough.
Oh God, yes.
There's enough of the average vanilla. Yeah. There's enough of it already that I don't need anybody coming in just because they think they're going to make a living here. Yeah. It is that kind of mentality, and that you got to think, does that energy equate to freedom? If my motivation for getting into something is not really person-focused, then, everybody's got to make a living. But there's a certain aspect of it that if you don't have that driving force and that peace within you that can transmit to another person, they sadly probably won't get better in your place.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that everybody transforms 100% that I've touched, that I've had my eyes on, that I've gotten to work with. Sadly, I've experienced the ultimate loss of death. I've experienced relapse. I'm saying people that have been through my center, and I've experienced a lot of amazing pieces too.
Yeah.
And that's the piece of it. You got to get in the arena to know, that. What is it that the cold souls will never know?
Yeah.
Neither victory or defeat.
Yeah.
you got to get in there and give it a shot.
Got to get in the arena. The man in the arena.
Right.
Yeah, you got to be in there. Well, we covered 3 of these, I think, important things today. That if you were paying attention and listening, I think it'll help you navigate this space a lot better. I can tell you my commitment. My commitment is to keep providing these family education support groups. I'm going to add support groups through the week. I'm hoping Jason will come along next week and take one of these meetings and educate you on trauma. He's a trauma expert. I think Gabor Mate is more like Jason Chain with just a European accent. He's so modest, but he's just like, you got to hear this guy talk about trauma. So hopefully he'll take one of these meetings to educate you, the public. So guys, thank you for tuning in to this episode today. Always remember to be good to yourselves. This episode was sponsored by Intervention on Call, your go-to resource for education, information, guidance, strategy, so you can make better informed decisions moving forward with your addicted loved one to get you out of this chaos. We hope you'll check out our free family support groups. Right now they're on Monday night, Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Like I said, we're going to be adding more groups, some more topic meetings. It's going to be the utopia for families out here struggling with addiction that don't know what the heck to do. I'm creating a place where you'll feel comfortable, where you will not feel sold to, where you'll feel like a community, and where your questions will be answered. And you're going to be ready to tackle this addiction head on. So, interventiononcall.com. Check it out today. We'll see you next time.